Welcome back to the final exciting chapter of the Corvette introduction, and we'll find out what is the Chevy Power Book. Inquiring minds want to know. Let's get into it. The Chevy Power was a book that was put out, I knew about it in the 70s, and it gave little tips and ideas about building engines, building chassis that improve things that the factory just didn't do. And I blame the accountants for that because, especially at the time, Chevrolet was cranking out as much of these as they could, and if they spent an extra $2 on them, that cut into their profit margin. I'm sure their stockholders would just raise Cain. But he went ahead and had all the modifications that were done. He had all the modifications done that were recommended by the Chevy Power Book. So this chassis is stiffer than the stock chassis would be, and really happy about that because, like I said, I like to go around corners. So anything we can do to stiffen up that chassis is wonderful. Speaking of, one of the things I'm going to have to do, which I'm going to wait until I have the engine back in so I can double check all of the lining up points. And this is a brace that is part of the standard transmission. I don't know if I can get a good shot of that. And this portion here is welded onto the frame. So I want to make sure I've got it lined up correctly before I weld it. So when I put the engine back in, I'm going to temporarily mock up the clutch linkage, which I don't have yet, and get everything all lined up correctly before I weld it onto the frame itself. I've got measurements that some of the other guys had done, but I just want to triple check because I hate redoing things. Oh, let me take you back off the stand and I forgot completely about the engine. Here is the 350, which it's buried right now, so I'm sorry you can't get a really good look at it. Some of the stuff I've got just sitting on there so it doesn't float around the shop. But I did pony up the money to get a safety bell housing on it because I figure my leg is worth $500. So I could have bought a stock bell housing and taken care of it just fine. That's a Richmond 5-speed transmission that's going into another vehicle, which I hope one day to be able to show you. But right now we're concentrating on these two. So anyway, this is a 350, and I checked it as the numbers matching one. Unfortunately, these days it's not all that desired, I guess, because everyone's doing LS. I have a lot of respect for the LS. I'm not going to be doing it. I'm not going to do it on any of my vehicles that I have planned because I'm not out building ultimate horsepower. I can really respect those guys that stick a turbo on one, make 1,000 horsepower. Yeah, it has its appeal, but especially in this car, I just don't want to beef up everything else to be able to handle that. And I can get in more than enough trouble, actually, with the way the engine's sitting right now. But of course, I will be putting a little bit more horsepower in it. But right now, which I'll hopefully have some pictures, just a couple to show you, that this engine has had some money put into it. This wasn't the intake manifold I got for it, or got with it. The one I got with it was a Edelbrock Street Master, which if you look it up, it's a old one that they did in the 70s, and they no longer make it. And in my opinion, there's a good reason for it, because it's a single plane that was trying to be good on the street, and everyone that I've been able to talk to that I respect, it gives out about 4,500 RPM. So for one of the first times, I went ahead and ordered an intake manifold through Jegs, which I don't have the part number handy right now. I'll see if I can find it and post it in the description later. But what's interesting about it is it was advertised as good to 5,500. And I thought, okay, well, it's just a copy of a Edelbrock Performer. So I went ahead and ordered it, trying to save a few bucks. And it comes to me, and I had a Edelbrock RPM intake that I was able to compare it to off the car. It's the same height, which is higher than a Performer, which is why I might have to do a L88 hood scoop on it. What I might do, though, is if I can find a Performer used, cheap enough, in good condition, I might go ahead and swap it back out. Because with the Performer, I can definitely run the stock hood, and that will help me get this car back on the road just a little bit quicker. Because last time I checked, the prices are about $1,500 to do the L88 swap over. Which at a later date, if I have the engine in it that I'm hoping to get, I'll go ahead and do. But for right now, I'm really trying to get this on the road in a reasonable time and get to driving it, which is always a good thing. You don't want yard art, which I have way too many of those. But anyway, back to this engine. Someone has done some work on it. Hopefully I can show you the pictures. It's got high compression pistons in it, which I couldn't find a part number, but guesstimating from what everyone else has advertised and the shape of it, what measurements I was able to do, it looks like this engine's 10 to 10.5 to 1 now, which is good. And someone has been in there and balanced it. So they put some money into it, but puzzlingly enough, they did put a little hotter camshaft in it. It's roughly a little hotter than a 350 horse 350 cam, but they bolted stock heads back on it, which were gone through, and from what I could tell, everything was done right. But they didn't put bigger valves in it, didn't do any port work, which, quite honestly, with these heads, it would have been a waste of money. But having said that, with these heads, and they even had the stock intake or exhaust manifolds on it, which I'm not going to. I'm going to put headers. I don't mind going through the trouble. And I guess you've stared at the engine long enough. So, with the stock heads, even with putting headers on it, even though the cam's a little hotter than the 350, I really feel the head's more restricted. I'd be really ecstatic if this thing put out 350 or 330 horsepower. Better set of heads and a roller cam, or even a hotter hydraulic lifter cam. I could easily be putting out 420 to 430 horsepower, which would be a lot of fun in this, and I'm considering it. But right now, we're going to go with what we have, and doing a head swap is something that's pretty easy to do in the car, even in a Corvette. So, might just leave them alone, swap the heads later, see what performance I can get out of that. My guess is swapping the heads, if I can get the ones I want, probably put another 50 horses into it. Make a pretty fun engine. Not the ultimate, but I'm not looking for the ultimate. I just want to have something that's fun to drive.
Um, haven't bought the transmission for it. I'm still vacillating between doing a Richmond 4-speed or another Richmond 5-speed, like what you saw. The reason I'm not using that 5-speed is, number one, it's going into another car, and it's got a 1-to-1 ratio. Now this has 336 gears in the rear end, which are okay for highway. Unfortunately, we're spoiled with overdrive these days, and the new Richmond comes with an overdrive, and I think it puts it out to like with the .77 overdrive, I think it works out to like a 258 on the highway, which basically you're in high idle going down the highway. Considering that, it's a big price difference. I know I shouldn't be worrying too much about price since I have a Corvette, but I'm not rich, but I want to do it right. So there will be some compromises, hopefully not too many. And my goal, if I didn't say it before, is to do this on a budget, but do it correctly. So I won't be cutting any corners if I can help it. And the things that I do leave alone for now are things that I can upgrade later. And I actually kind of like doing that because you get used to a car and then you do upgrades, and it's like driving a whole different car. So anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will keep you updated.